your advice to someone who is lost?
The opposite of addiction is connection, and I could never do this thing on my own.
I've been working since I was a kid. I just gotta keep my head.
That you're responsible for and that your name's attached to, do you feel like that gave you that responsibility to be better than you were?
That's when it all began. I don't need a rollie on my.
If you believe in yourself a little bit, you'd be surprised what could happen.
Yeah, I got them fed up for real. Running around, but I'm the passenger now, cause Jesus untouchable.
Today I have a very, very, very special guest. He is arguably one of the top Philly fans, period. The Philly sports guy, Jamie Pagliei. What's up, brother?
Not much, man. Thank you for having me.
No worries, man. No, dude, so we've connected a little bit through Jordan, and then I saw you at the Devontae Smith softball game. So like, how was it? Did you enjoy it? How was it?
It was a lot of fun. It was the first time ever being in that stadium.
It's nice.
It is a nice
really
stadium.
Nice.
No wonder it got like all the awards for like the best AAA stadium
did it really?
in the country.
Yeah.
So it really is a nice stadium, and it was a great event. You know what I mean? It's good. It's good to kind of see those guys when we haven't seen them in a while. You know what I mean?
Right.
We haven't really. They don't do a lot of stuff on social media.
Right.
There was the, like the mini camp, but there wasn't really a lot that came from that.
Yeah.
So it was good to kind of see what kind of shape they were in, and even like CTO and Ocho Cinco and stuff like that. Just see how they look.
Seeing Saquon, his legs are massive in person.
Oh my God, yeah, he looks a lot smaller, like shorter in stature, but his legs are like you could like just his whole thighs and everything is like beast.
Yeah. And so, for those who don't know, Jamie, you don't recognize him because he doesn't have the face paint on, but he goes to, what do you go to, every single, like, Philly game period? Like, you get every game?
So I go to every Eagles game.
Yeah.
I go to as many Phillies games as I can. There's sometimes, like, life gets in the way,
right.
Just one thing or another.
Yeah.
I go to a good amount of or Flyers games and Sixers games, and then as many Union games as I can make it to.
That's awesome.
And then, like, even some of the smaller sports, like you have the Ultimate Frisbee, and they started a cornhole league here for a little while, and the league wasn't really exactly how they wanted to, so they pulled back and gearing up for next year.
So you're around. So
I'm around.
Is that like, let me ask you this then. So you commit so much time to it. Is it like your full-time thing?
It is.
It is. That's awesome. So when did that become full-time for you?
About 4 or 5 years ago.
Really?
I wasn't really doing anything. Like, I had just sold my business, or like closed it up really.
Yeah.
Because I was a chimney sweep and a mason. And it was just hard to find anybody who wanted to work.
Right.
And then kind of COVID hit, so that kind of dried up.
Yeah.
And then ultimately it was like, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm doing the social media thing. Let's see what I can do in terms of getting sponsors and things like that. And it's not been an easy road, not by any stretch. Like, everybody, there's a lot of people that believe, like, oh, he gets to go to all these sporting events and do his thing. And I tell them, heavy is the crown.
Yeah, and that's why. And that's why I wanted to have you on this podcast too, because obviously I see your content; it's amazing. You brighten people's day. You get the crowd involved. You're like the symbol of like a Phillies. What a Philly fan is. You embody a Philly fan. I'm curious. So, like, when did you start doing this? Like, it's an obvious question, but I have to ask. When did you start this journey for you?
I've been painting my face for probably every bit of 25 years. I mean, I guess the first time I really remember doing it was in 2002 for an away game. Like, that was like the first time I went with my brother, and it was like the mark of, all right, this is what we're going to do every year, and we're going to go to an away game and start this. And I kind of painted my face for the first time there, and and then we went to Atlanta a year later or 2 years later and did it there. I was always wanted to do it at home, but I never did it at home games because there was Sean, and I kind of gave respect to Sean, because it's like, it's not like painting your face is exclusive to any one person.
Right.
But I just always felt that he was that guy, so I wasn't going to be that guy.
Right. And how did you make it yours? How did you make it your thing?
You know what? It was going down to the Saints playoff game in 2019, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And I got recognized. I had a couple of videos that went viral. And, I came back, and a production company down in Wilmington said, hey, we'd love to have you come in and do a commercial for a charity. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And just by doing it, they're like, man, your energy is like amazing.
Yeah.
you're like the Philly sports guy. You should see if that name's available. And it was. You know, there has the show The Philly Sports Guys.
Right.
But there was never any one Philly sports guy.
Singular, yeah.
And I just started to take the name under, you know, like all the social media. It was like I just grabbed the name.
Oh, wow.
And ultimately, there's like, hey, listen, we'll teach you how to do social media if you want to learn. And I'm like, you know, I ain't doing nothing anyways right now. Like, things have really taken a downturn with my business. Sure, let's give it a shot.
That's pretty cool.
And I wound up being pretty good at it.
Yeah, no, like I said, your energy is amazing, and like you bring a lot of fire to your every event you go to. So like, why? Let me ask you, why did you want to start painting your faces? And you know, I understand like it takes a lot of effort, and you know, so why did you start doing that?
You know, it's funny that my mother was, when this all kind of started to happen, my mother was on her deathbed. She was, you know, had COPD and emphysema from years of smoking. Yes, everybody, you should quit smoking. And we talked, and my mother and I's relationship was always a little contentious just because she was a Gemini, I was a Libra, and our love was shown like this.
Right.
You know, it was just always, she was stubborn and I was hard-headed, and we weren't going to get very far.
Right.
So, but you know, on her deathbed, there was some regret that she had. Like, she's like, you know, I stayed in jobs for so long that I was unhappy with. She goes, if you want to do this Philly sports guy job, then do it. Just do it, because we ain't above the grass for so long, but for so long.
Right.
And then she turned to me and she goes, you know, when you were like 10 years old, you asked me why doesn't people paint their faces for like the Phillies? I mean, that you see it for the Eagles, but now not for the Phillies or the Flyers or the Sixers. And I was like, well, what did you answer? She goes, I don't know what I answered. I probably told you to go outside and play. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
like, there's no answer to that question.
Yeah.
But the fact that she remembered that made me think, well, maybe this was
Right.
something that's supposed to be. And I've always been really passionate about watching games. Like, it's, you know, watching the Flyers score a goal and going from 0 to like 100 miles per hour and scaring everybody around you
Right.
because you just watched a goal is something that I can't help. It's just automatic and comes out of me. So I was told that I couldn't even watch games in the house anymore. So I've learned that being a fan the way that I am, when I don't have the face paint on, you know, makes me difficult, you know, challenging to be, you know, to be around. Because like watching the Eagles, I would literally be like watching a football game and people would be behind me and I'd start yelling at the screen. And then what would happen is people would actually come to watch the game, not necessarily with me, but to watch me watch the game. Because I would be so, like, I'd be yelling at the television and I'd be yelling things that would be talked about like on Tuesdays and Wednesdays on sports radio, not the stuff that's in the immediate situation.
Right.
It's like when I saw, like, you know, there's one play that still sticks out in my head, that Doug Peterson, it was like a 4th and 1 call and Zach Ertz was not in on the play. And I'm like, how is it that you have a 4th and 1? I don't care if he can block or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just know that if he's out there and if I could see this, that they're going to see this and this is going to fail.
He's a threat.
Yeah, and it's going to fail. And it failed. And the fact that I was able to just kind of yell that out to people, you know, like people, like I said, people would start to call in to sports talk on Monday and be like, you know, there, or Tuesday, like, you know, that play, Zach Ertz, he wasn't in there. He would have been a decoy or something. And it's just because I could do it. And now it just makes it easier. Like I said, the face paint makes me more tolerable.
I have a question for you. And like I said, my dad sent me this today, and he wanted me to ask you. So, Mike Nichols, shout out to you. He said, did you ever get your apology from Angelo Cataldi?
No.
Really?
You know, and it's every once in a while I will have somebody ask me that. I never expected one. It became a much bigger deal than I even expected it to be. Like, it was not meant to be that. I think that unfortunately, when there's nothing to talk about, there's always going to be something.
Right.
And during that time, it was right after the draft, and Sean said that he received a phone call from somebody asking, "Hey, come out, do an interview with me before you leave." He's like, "I'm not there." So, and it started this, what actually happened with Sean type of thing. I guess those were the questions that started to come from this reporter. And Sean started to answer them. And then he was like, after seeing, I'm not saying that there's a jealousy thing or whatever, but when you saw the draft, you saw me all the time.
Right, yeah.
And, people confuse me with Sean all the time. I still get called Sean.
Right.
But I've been doing so much other things that even in Phillies gear, people will call me Sean. And I feel like it's more of a homage to him. Like I said, my Eagles attire and wearing the shoulder pads came from him. And the other question I get asked is, "Oh, are you the one with the spikes on the shoulder pads?" That must have been part of the Mandela effect, because there's never been an Eagles fan that wore spikes on his shoulder pads.
It was the Raiders, right?
Yeah, it's always been the Raiders, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So,
But
but I think that it started to, you start to go down memory lane with somebody who's asking questions, and next thing you know, it becomes a social media post, and it starts to gain life, all because I had this, joke that happened with the girl from the NFL Network.
Right.
So it was. She gave me a $5 bill in that, just so that everybody knows. I'm going to lay out the joke. She gave me a $5 bill. I still have the $5 bill.
Really?
I do.
So for people listening, so I want you to give them full context as well. So Angelo Cataldi is, I would say, the voice of Philly. I guess he was on the radio for a long time. He had his own sports show, and I would love for you to explain the situation, because I read about it, but I want to hear it, obviously from you, and what your thoughts on it.
So. I just get back from the draft.
And this picked up a lot of traction, didn't it? Throughout the city?
Much more than I expected it to. This was, first off, that moment with me and the girl from the NFL Network, that went viral on multiple social media. They were just like, he just take his shot on, did he really just try to work her out on national television? And the good thing is that I've done a little bit of acting, so I know how to play this up. And we set it up. She goes, "This is what I want you to do, and we're going to do it." And okay, and I was like, "All right, I'll do it." And and I came up with the line, and I looked like I played the part. Like, "Hey, I'm going to work this out with you."
Right, yeah.
And she was like, "All right, here you go," and just sends me on my way. And it kind of looked very awkward from her part,
right?
Because I was acting, I guess, a little bit too much on that.
Embellishing, yeah.
Anyways, it goes viral. It gets on WIP on Monday. So now I'm home, and my brother calls me up, and he's like, "They're talking about you on WIP. I think you should call in, because I think they'll get you on right now."
Yeah, they'll probably put you on right away.
Yeah, because you're being spoken about right now, and he's kind of going out after me for no reason, just because I'm wearing the number 11, and I'm like. So I get on, and all this is going on. Sean wrote his post on social media that got really a tremendous amount of traction. And then you have all of these other different media outlets that are posting the video of me trying to work out Bonanetta. Her name was Bonanetta or something like that from the NFL Network. And Rachel Bonanetta is what her name was. And they're talking about on WIP. Now, I'm not listening to WIP, so I have no idea what they're talking about. And I call in, so on my brother's word that I call in, and they put me right on. And it's like, "Hey, Jamie, this is what's going on." And I'm like, and Angelo immediately starts kind of going on to me here. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about here. He says, "I've had my number 11 forever, and the Eagles gave it to me. They put my last name on the back. I didn't, I didn't ask."
So it's a Puma jersey, right?
I got it in 2002. and getting the jersey is even a story. It's a funny story even at that. But I've had that jersey since 2002. I wear it to every Eagles game.
Yeah.
I'm not giving it up for nothing. I don't care who says it.
Yeah.
And he just started attacking me on it, and I'm just like, The next day, so it's a number 11, and because Wentz wore number 11, I need to burn it, and it's about it's about the team and not you as an individual. And I'm like, I don't know where this is even coming from.
Right. Yeah.
For the rest of the show, he started to so he hangs up on me, which is fine, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I'm sure he was just trying to get ratings, and it worked.
I guess it worked, right?
Everything was viral, and so. At that point, he starts going and calling me jack off Jamie or jerk off Jamie or whatever it is, jackass Jamie,
Jackass Jamie,
and like my kids are there and they're listening and they're like, why is he calling you that? Like, what's going on? Like, why is he so angry? Because now I'm listening to WIP,
right?
Because I just
you gotta hear what's going on.
Yeah,
now. For sure.
And so I'm like, all right. And so I wrote about what had happened. Like, okay, I just had this great time at the draft. I want to thank the Eagles for allowing me to get in there and be front and center for that draft. Then I wanted to thank Sean because, like I said, Sean had wrote this big thing and he got a tremendous amount of support from some people. And I've had some people that came on to me and then we kind of spoke about it. He's like, listen, I wasn't really trying to do this. I was just venting and it became a thing. And I'm like, okay, I have no problem with that. I have full respect for you. We're Eagles fans. We don't need to have drama. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
exactly.
there's no ill will.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, oh, I'm you and I'm taking over for you. I want you to do what you're doing because there's room for plenty of us.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I wrote saying, hey, this was uncalled for. I'm a Navy veteran. I've done nothing but good for this community here. I do a ton of charity work. And here it is, just because you don't like the number on my jersey, that you're calling me a jackass in front of my kids. You know what I mean?
It kind of makes it personal.
So, and I was like, I'd like an apology. However, if you feel that you don't need to give me an apology, that's fine. Enjoy retirement. You've done a tremendous amount in this, for this city.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I left it. But because I was so, I guess, positive about even what had transpired, it grabbed more attention. So now it's being on Crossing Broad and all of these other things. And of course it had to drop because the very next day, AJ Brown chose number 11.
Oh yeah.
So there was no more beef about it, because he couldn't. He just had to be like, okay, you know what, it is what it is.
Yeah, you're not gonna come with AJ Brown, you know what I mean? But so you mentioned you mentioned your kids a lot, and I'm really curious as to how important family's been for you and what they think of their dad being a guy who goes to sports games and enjoys the sporting events and paints his face and has this big personality. What do your kids think of that, and how's your family life?
That's a tough question because as much as I think of what they are, I mean, they're 14 and 13 years old.
Right.
They have a whole different opinion than really what it is that I know and believe.
Yeah.
I think they get excited about the fact that all of their friends know who I am. You know what I mean? So I'm obviously very big, and there's kids recognize me. So when I go to the school, I have to I don't want to go there painted up because I don't want to cause
attention,
a mass hysteria. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I walk into a school and somebody sees me, the next thing you know, everybody's coming out to see me, and then they want to get all their cameras out, and it's a school, so you have to be really protective about stuff like that.
Right, for sure.
But I am still their dad. You know what I mean? So he introduced me to his one friends as and this is the man. Obviously, they were fans of mine, so, and they're like, and this is the man. I'm like, yeah, I'm just his dad. You know what I mean? You have to
now. Yeah, there's different modes.
Correct. You have to kind of just temper it all. But I think they like it. However, they're not sports fans.
Really? Interesting. Have you tried getting into sports at all? Or
I try. Their mother tells me that I scared them away from that, from doing what I normally do, like just watching Flyers games and getting really excited. And I would scare them, at a young age. So they looked at sporting events as things that would scare them.
Right.
Now that they get older, it's a little different.
And I think they'll understand your influence too, because there was a kid, I don't know if his name was Luke or whatever, but he dressed as you for Halloween. I'm pretty sure that was a pretty cool moment that I saw. Like, when did you realize or really start seeing the impact you were making on like the Philadelphia like sports scene?
I tell you, I still am surprised by the mark that I leave. People would send me notes and messages and text messages, and it's like, hey, I was able to, my father was a huge Eagles fan, and we started to watch your videos, and he was on hospice, and and we were able to laugh for like the last month just because of you screaming at a phone. That's all I'm doing is I'm taking 30 seconds and I'm yelling at my phone, and to hear that there's that bonding between somebody who's about to pass and their son, and obviously these aren't little kids,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
To get that kind of message is like, maybe I'm not just a little kid thing. Now I'm not just a sports clown, because I always tell people, like, when you paint your face for a living, you better get the joke. You have to know where you're at with things. And all I do is, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody in Philadelphia is going to like me, but I'm going to be positive. I'm going to bring a lot of joy. I'm going to take a lot of pictures.
Right.
And if you don't like it, you don't have to take a picture.
Right. And and I think that's the beauty of it too, is like you are super yourself. You're super authentic. And I think like you've done a very good job of like bridging the gap between like sports and and tradition and family. You mentioned like creating moments with families because of you're on a phone screen, talking at it for 30 seconds. And so you have like, so was it, were you ever set out, like, was that ever your goal to like, have that impact? Like, what was your goal going into it? You were just like, I love sports. I love watching the the Eagles and Phillies and all that. Like, why do you think you had like,
when I started to do it and I saw how well I was able to get received, that once they started to be okay, and once they started to get the following, it's like, oh, now you're getting things. And then I'm kind of very good about putting myself out there in a way that can go viral when things go bad. People around Philadelphia don't necessarily like it. However, everywhere else in the world, when Philadelphia fails, they are on top of it,
right?
Like when I had the one video, we were up by 18 in the Sixers and lost to Atlanta for Game 5, a game that I was at.
You were at that game?
I was at that game.
I am so sorry about that.
And I made a video, and I remember going over to my father's house the next day, and there were only about 20,000 views on it. And I'm like, maybe I got away with this. Maybe nobody saw it. And I had it so that my phone would go off every 5,000 messages, and it was like, it started to
5,000 text or DMs?
Likes. After 5,000 likes, I was just like, okay, it's going to message me.
Okay.
And it was like message, and it went mega viral because they found it.
Wow,
where it's like, hey, there's no way we're going to lose this game. And we lose.
Yeah, I remember exactly where I was at. I was at my buddy Deborah's house on the roof in Fishtown, and that I'd never been so angry besides Game 6 against the Celtics as I was at that game. I was never so angry as a Sixers fan, and so yeah, it's been tough the past few years for the Sixers. But do you have like a moment in Philly sports history that really like stands out to you that you lived through and been and like, were able to like experience?
Well, I was at the ballpark for 2008.
Oh, how was that? It was probably like magical, huh?
It was. It was. I mean, so we the mother of my kids was pregnant, like 8 months pregnant, and it was a birthday gift. My birthday's on October 20th. This was October 22nd,
okay.
And we're there, and she stuck it out through the torrential downpour that happened, and then they're like, okay, we're going to be able to come back and do this, and we're like, all right, well, I guess we're going to do this again. And, you know, it was amazing because the celebration got to start way early because of the way it worked out. So it was a lot of fun being there for that and just the electricity and the excitement.
Right.
I was there when Mitch Williams threw the 1-2-3 perfect ninth against the Braves in '93.
Wow.
I was there for the second half of the game that started at 1 o'clock in the morning that year.
Oh yeah, it was a late game, right?
Well, it was a doubleheader against the Padres, and the second game didn't start until 1 o'clock in the morning. There was more people at the second game because the bars let out. Well, they went back to
go to a baseball game.
Might as well go hang out and go to the go to the game. And so we wound up going there again. It was like, why not? Let's go to the game. And wound up down there to watch Mitch Williams hit a single to win that game at like 4:10 in the morning. I think it was. And such.
That's crazy. That's an experience, man. And you've experienced so much. And just even naming dates, like you got your jersey in 2002, the 1993 game. Do you have a player throughout the years? I don't like superlative questions, but like I have to ask, like, is there anyone that sticks out to you as like an influence for you, as someone you like, a Philly athlete that you just love?
I mean, it's like asking which kid you like better.
Do you have a top three, I guess?
I do. I mean, I guess for some reason, I was always really a huge fan of Harold Carmichael. I wrote a thing about how he was like a hero of mine, and when I was in third grade.
Really?
You know, that teacher only gave me a C+, by the way. I'm really unhappy about that. But, you know, it was just like, so he was one of those guys because he had just won like the Man of the Year award during what it was called back then.
Yeah.
So
and he's a receiver for the Eagles, right?
And he was
is he the number one? Number one all time, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, and then I think of like Mike Schmidt. You know what I mean? Just because I watched. You know, I was always into sports from like 2 years old,
right?
Because my mother and my grandmother worked at the Spectrum and the Vet. Okay. So when there was a sporting event on, I was watching television, you know, and so because I always thinking like when you're that young, I was thinking they're like waitresses in the restaurants. I wouldn't even think about having, you know, being able to see them now. Right. But when you're 2 and 3 years old, 5 years old, you're watching the game because I'm going to see my mom. You know what I mean?
Okay,
she's going to be on TV.
Yeah.
She's never going to be on TV because she's never near the ice or the.
There's always that chance you would think.
But yeah, but like they're going to show her.
Yeah.
So, and it never happened, but you start to watch the game and you start to you know feel the different things. I mean, I am number 19 when I wear for sporting events, like when I play sports, because of Rick McLeish. So I go that far back because he was able to do things with the puck that I still can't see a lot of people doing.
Right. And do you think that like, do you notice any differences from athletes back when you were really when you were growing up to now? Do you know? I didn't notice anything different.
Sports is so different.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell a story about that Greg Lazinski all the time. At 7 years old, my mother had to go to work, and she was working at the vet. And my father was a concrete finisher and wasn't able. He was a union guy, and he was still working. So they were going to pick me up from the vet. One of the bartenders got set up early and says, "I'm going to take him down to the dugout." Just that alone, you know, like, hey, we're working in the vet. I'm going to be able to get access to the dugout, and we're going to be able to see the players. That's at 7 years old. So that's 43 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just to be able to think that there's that. And, you know, even into the 90s, like hockey players were very approachable. And you were able to kind of go and have beers with them and hang out with them and such. Yeah. It's even that's now. You can't do that.
I think it changed because the rate of pay has grown. So I feel like, you know, egos grow and celebrity status and social media. Now that we idolize these people so much more, I feel like. How did you get the number 11 jersey? You mentioned you had a story you wanted to tell. How did you get that 11 jersey?
So in 2002, they were doing events. The Flyers Carnival was always a big deal in Philadelphia. So Jeffrey Lurie tried to do and mimic that. And there was, so he had an event on the vet turf. And one of the things that they were doing was an obstacle course, and the fastest person above 21 years of age and the fastest person under 21 years of age is going to win a game-worn jersey. They don't tell you what jersey or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, and it's just a matter of picking up shoulder pads, a jersey, and a helmet, and running around some cones, and the fastest time across the finish line wins the jersey. Just on the other side of the finish line, they have a table where they have people signing autographs and doing all that stuff, and the line's going the opposite direction. So, all right, I go up there. It's $20 to do this, and I run the race. And as you know, I got the shoulder pads on, I got the jersey over my head, I got the helmet on. I'm running around the cones, and I trip on the turf, and I go flying across the finish line. I knock over the player that's signing autographs right there. Chair is like destroyed. I'm flying. Helmet's on sideways. Guy got knocked over me. The guy, gets up and helps pick me up, takes the helmet off. It's a rookie, Brian Westbrook.
Wow.
I was the first person to tackle Brian Westbrook at the vet.
Hell yeah, Jamie.
I got the jersey to prove it. I was the fastest time of the day.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So what happened after that? Was he cool with it? Like, he probably had no idea.
You know what? It's like when I told him that story, he's like, yeah, I remember that.
Right.
He's like, I do remember it, because he's a rookie and he's signing autographs.
Yeah.
And because I got up and I told him, I'm like, oh man, I followed you at Villanova. I think you're going to be great.
Wow.
But it just all kind of happened all at once.
Right.
And it's,
Yes. So there's a lot of players, I feel like Westbrook, who is so ingratiated with Philadelphia and like the Eagles culture. Are there any athletes you have relationships with that you've been able to have over the years?
Hollis Thomas has been somebody who I've been able to like become real friendly with. I have, there are some guys that know me and will talk to me and such like that. I don't really go out of my way to try to bother players. They get so much of that, and the hard part is that I can't magically take off my paint.
Right.
So when you see me in the paint, it's, as a player, you get a different involvement. It's like you are back at work.
Right.
Because I get it, because when I go somewhere not, to where I'm local and I'm painted up, I'm working. It's
right.
If I'm in a bar somewhere, they're going to come up and want to take pictures and do that, and you have to be on. It's the same way when they see me. They have to be on. And I don't like that I do that for them. You know what I mean? So I'd prefer if I could just, again, snap my fingers and the makeup be off. But because I can't, I don't go out of my way to try to do that. And that limits me in a lot of ways. Because I'm not one of those guys that, fawn's going to fawn all over them. I don't need to talk shop. I want to go have a beer with them and talk about what their life is going on, like what's going on and what's important to them, how it is with them being a father, dealing with children, and then having to go away all the time. And
just genuine connection.
Exactly. Like that, they're human beings. You know what I mean? The fact that they make a lot more money than a lot of people is, irrelevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For playing a game, nonetheless.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy. They, how that, like I said, that dynamic has changed. But you mentioned you can't instantly take the makeup off. How long does it take you to put it on?
Takes in about an hour.
An hour. Okay.
Yeah, like if I know like there is something special happening, I'll take longer just because I want to try to make sure it's perfect. Wow. But for the most part, it takes about an hour to get on and only 10 minutes to come off.
Oh yeah, you probably just
shampoo washes all of it off. It's done that quick.
Yeah. So, what would you say? What do you enjoy the most about I guess sports and like being out at the games and being a part of the culture? What do you enjoy the most about that?
The energy. And that's why it's fun for me, because I'm a very energetic guy in general. Right. So I like being, situations where I can inject energy and everybody respond in turn, and there's not many situations that people get to do that. And that's kind of what drives me, because it's like, it's a sporting event. So people see me outside of the sporting event. Like when I'm back at my local bar, hey, shout out to Dolan's Bar, my living room.
Shout out to Dolan's Bar.
When I'm sitting there and like after a Monday, like on a Monday night, and they're like, "Wow, you're awfully quiet." It's like I have to decompress. I have to be able to come down and I'm just not going to have that energy level because it's so high for so long.
Right. And so when you're out, you obviously have that high energy. When you're off and you want to decompress, how do you decompress?
Actually, I'll sit there and I'll read what everybody else has wrote and just kind of, relax, just literally straight relax. Like try not to ingratiate myself with everything that happened in the game. A lot of fans wear the losses very hard. Right. I am not one of them.
Are you someone who is like always moves on to the next thing?
Kind of. This is tough because there is, all right, so you have the Phillies all the way up to the Eagles, and then you have the Flyers, and then you have the Sixers, and in the meantime, the Union is sprinkled in with all of that, and so there is always something to turn to. Like the day after we lost the Super Bowl, and I got home, I went to a Flyers game, right? So because you want to be able to just it's time to move on now. Like it's I don't have the luxury of being upset for too long.
Right. Does that that drive you have and that desire for the energy and creating that environment, does that stem from anything? Is there anything like growing up that you like that it stems from, or is it just something you just found yourself to be in love with over time?
I think it was something that I always did. Again, the Flyers taught me how to be a fan. So when they scored, it was always exciting. And when you're 3 and 4 years old and they're winning Stanley Cups and they're having parades and your family is a big part of that. Like I used to go have Christmas party, like be part of the Christmas parties with the Flyers. They would come over and like play pinochle at our house. So the players knew my mother and my grandmother, and it kind of made them much more accessible. So I got a lot more excited about it. It was something that not many people got to do, but it was because my family is doing this. Right. So at 14 years old, like I started to work at the Spectrum, and I was a busboy. Oh wow! I had my first beer ever given to me by Mark LaForest.
Really?
And it's
pretty neat.
At 14 years old, it's probably he saved me from getting fired on that job just by getting in the way. It's probably the only save he made as a Flyer. So.
That's awesome. What's up?
This one is
out. It usually it cuts out after 30 minutes. It's okay. That's fine. Thanks for letting me know. So I want to transition into growing up. So like when you were growing up and you were where did you grow up? In what part of Philly?
So I was born in Overbrook area, but we moved out into Swarthmore around somewhere when I was 3. Okay. So I could say that I grew up in Ridley, Swarthmore area my entire life.
Right. And so it was with like you have any siblings?
I have 4 brothers.
4 brothers. Okay. And do they come out and with you, or are they how do they play a part in your life?
My oldest brother, my 2 older brothers were half brothers, and my oldest brother is, kind of, he's like set in his ways. He's not really a sports fan, like knows what it is that I do, but it's more like, the younger one from him just passed away, but was a big sports fan, big family guy, knew everything that I was doing. Like I spent the Super Bowl at his house when we won, painted up.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
So it was like his house would be the one that we would always go to for any big sporting event. Right. My younger brother is the one right underneath me, is not a sports fan in the slightest bit, but gets a kick out of what it is that I do. Yeah. My youngest brother is the one that I go to most of the games with, or at least he watched this all evolve. Going from, all right, just looking like what like the Hulk kind of to
Yeah.
I did like where it looked like I was a green and white tiger.
Right.
Then I tried to make myself look like an eagle, and then
Yeah.
now this, a couple of variations of this to become finally,
Right.
The Mohawk started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
'cause
It's a good look for you, brother.
it's funny how it's like now it's just what I wear.
It's part of you.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned evolving over the years. Is there anything that you've really noticed about like yourself as you've evolved? Like even just the little things like the makeup and getting better with that. Is there anything you notice about yourself like over the years?
The talking to the phone. I am the one thing that I do very well is I do one takes. Every video that you see, there are the very, very small exceptions. And I would say that within the last year, I may have done 2 retakes. Just because like I started something or somebody came in the middle of it and I had to stop and redo it. Because most of the time, even if something occurs, I work it in and just, bypass it. So, but I'm always a one take guy. It's like, this is what it is because that's the most real. At that point, it's
right.
like, and then it's done. And then you just put it out there into the universe and, it's going to.
The one take Drake.
Kind of, yeah.
Do you think, and so let me ask you this then. So do you think having the makeup on and having that persona, do you think that like, do you use that to, have that personality? And do you think it really helps you like, turn it on for yourself? Because I understand there's people who you are with the makeup on and who you are without it. Do you use that as a way to like keep yourself like energized in a way? Like, is there I guess what I'm trying to say is like, do you find that having the makeup on is like a
trigger,
like a trigger for you? Yeah.
It used to be. It would be. When I first started doing this and started going into elaborate, it would take 3 and 4 hours to do.
Oh, wow.
So it would be a buildup that by the time I was done, I was like a raging lunatic. You know what I mean? It's like, let's go out and now let's do this. Once it started to become more mainstream in terms of, all right, I'm doing it for the Phillies and the Flyers and the Sixers, that stopped. Because it's like now I'm putting face paint on all the time, where it was happening maybe once a year or sometimes twice, 3 times a year, to now even 16 times, 17 times a year is a lot. It's like...
Do you think it gets rid of like, I know a lot of people have social anxiety when they're out. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but do you think that having the makeup on kind of alleviates that a little bit? Like for example, Marshmallow, he puts a helmet on and he is a different person. Do you think that it alleviates any type of social anxiety you think you may have? Not
for me. I've always been very outgoing.
Okay.
It's never been an issue for me. Like I've it's funny is I'll try to explain this in a way that makes sense. When I was in high school, I hung around with 2 guys all the time, and we would always, the 3 of us would go out and try to work the malls to try to pick up girls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would be the one who would start the conversation. My buddy would be the one who was the middle guy, and then the other guy was the closer.
The closer.
He was the closer. So, but that's what it was. I was the starter. I was the one that was not afraid to go up. If you were going to say no to me, you're going to say no to me, and I'm fine with that. I'm going to go talk to the next one, and never be afraid of that type of stuff. So that's always been just a part.
Yeah.
And I've always just been very loud.
You were a very social guy in high school and growing up. And did you go to college?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I went to Wilkes University and, community college for a little while. I went into the service right out of high school.
Okay.
So it was like I spent 3 years in the Navy.
Navy, right?
And, did my thing there and then, came home and tried school. Just
wasn't for you.
Certain classes I love. Certain classes I just can't stand going, waiting,
Right.
just to get out of.
Right.
So it was like, because you're making me take these other classes that I don't want to take, I'm not really interested in.
Yeah. Do you think, so you started off, you said you mentioned you really only hung out with like 2 people, right? You said you had like,
2 best friends.
2 best friends.
But I was, there wasn't a lot of, so we all went to Archmere, which was a private school in Delaware. We all left the same year, and went to 3 different schools. So I went to
Okay.
Ridley. My one buddy went to Kennett Square, and the other one wound up moving to Reading.
Okay.
So my junior year, I spent a lot of time skipping school, hitchhiking over to Kennett Square, where he would get in his car and drive up to Reading.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was. So because of that, I wasn't
Right.
as friendly as I could possibly be with
Right.
the people in school.
Have you noticed the difference, like when, like now, you know, you start off, you weren't the Philly sports guy back then, but like being that now, getting a lot more attention and you know, interactions. You notice, like, do you notice a change in yourself through like over the years of like starting off as being someone just starting out, and then now getting all this attention? Do you think it's like changed who you are in any type of way? Not in a bad way, but just in general.
I don't think so. I think I've always been this way. It's just now people are noticing because they can't help but watch. You know, it's like this is it's like the train wreck.
Can't look away.
Yeah, you have to see it, especially when you have somebody like as quick as things happen. It's like
Right.
bang. Oh, now you got what's up, everybody? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
I'm right in your face,
Right.
and you just what is this?
Right.
By the time you're done, you've already watched 10 seconds of the 20 seconds. So then when you go to flip because you don't like what you see or you're not interested, at that point, I've gotten your attention past that 7-second mark, which makes it show up on everybody else's
Right.
algorithm. So
Do you think that's why it works so well? Is the shock factor and shock value?
yes, but I also am good at the banter. I love bantering back and forth with people. And the fact that I don't curse makes it more wholesome. You know what I mean? So I am able to do a banter back and forth with a fan from another city, and where I can keep it on the field and I can make them, you know, truth of the matter is I've been doing it longer now. So I am better at berating somebody without cursing. When you start to try to bully me in any way, shape, or form, if you like, there's certain people who talk about the game, and there's certain people who try to bully me. When you try to bully me, you're going to lose because I'm going to be able to bully you back so much better.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
just because you're stuck under my
I mean,
rules.
you're a vet now, you know.
Right, exactly.
And so, when you first started out, obviously, like with anyone who starts anything, there's always that hesitation and like the, what if I'm going to get judged? This is, you know, it's just crazy. Like, did you suffer from that or go through any of that? Like the initial like people like being afraid people what they're going to say and like the stuff they're going to like, you know, comment.
I had to stop reading the comments. You have to stop reading the comments. There are going to be haters, and then once you start, I realized very quickly that the haters are more loyal than the followers.
It's facts.
So they are haters will watch your thing 4 and 5 times trying to figure out what to say, you know, and followers will like and just keep on scrolling. Excuse me. But the real haters, the ones who don't care about what it is that you're posting. I had this one guy, he's like every bit of 70 years old. When I went to go find out what he was looking at, he looks at every pretty girl that there ever was that has a page,
Right.
you know, and then writes notes on how beautiful they are.
Right.
But he was writing to me and like unsolicited, just saying that, you know, I'm this idiot and that I don't have a girlfriend, that I, you know, only get laid by my dog. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, first off, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But second off, like, why? What is the purpose of any of that?
Well, that's the thing too, and I think like anyone who has a hustle and anyone who's trying to strive to pursue anything doesn't have time to care about that type of stuff. And like I've never understood that. And you know, obviously the negative comments suck, but I think the most important part is the positive comments that you get. And what kind of love have you been receiving? Is there anything throughout your career that has really stuck out to you?
While doing this, I've been getting a lot of like people lately, like, you can't stop doing this. You have to continue. And I tell you, it's not easy. You know, this is not easy to do. I am not made of money. You know, and these games do get expensive. And these teams, you know, I will say that I do get some help in certain ways, but I don't get a tremendous amount. And it's, you know, like people say you should charge for the pictures that you take. Well, I think about that all the time because really a quarter for every picture that I took would make sure that I could go to every game.
Right.
I'd make so much money just from a quarter per picture that but I don't, because I feel like that the moment that I have to start to charge, people
It sort of takes away from the authenticity that you present.
right.
So when it comes to like interacting with fans and stuff like that, are there any core values that you picked up over the years of just how to, like, I guess, have that presence and have that personality? Is there any core values you picked up over the years?
The whole not cursing was definitely one of the things that is very difficult to do in, one, being a Philadelphia fan, two, being in the Navy. Like, trust me, I know how to curse pretty
curse
well.
like a sailor,
Yeah, exactly. So, but there was always, like those types of things. Like when people get out of line now, like there was something that happened this weekend. There was some Pittsburgh fans that were starting to get a little over uppity, and I'm like, yo, dude. There's kids around, what I mean? You turn it down some, what I mean? It's just, you ain't got no choice, or else we're going to have a Right,
right,
but the thing is, I'm not going to get violent. I'm just going to get the ushers, You're going to just get escorted out fast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so I guess to anyone who is pursuing something or is looking to get themselves out of their comfort zone and try something that's out of the box, do you have advice that you've been able to acquire over the years that you could give to like someone watching?
Do it. Absolutely do it. I live outside my comfort zone. This isn't always easy. Trust me, there are days that I do not want to paint my face. Sunday being one of them. It was too hot. I stayed up too late the night before. It's like it's 10 o'clock in the morning and I got to get up to paint my face to go to a tailgate before I go to the game, and I just don't feel like it.
Right. So let me ask you this then. So what ultimately pushes you to do it then?
The feeling that you get, the feeling that I get when there's a little kid who sees me and they'll ask me for an autograph, and it's like, it's the goofiest thing to me, because it's like, why would you want my autograph? Like I'm actually lessening the ball now, the worth of that baseball by signing it. But it's that little 7-10 second interaction that I have with that kid that the mother gets to see, reverts back to that picture. It actually lives on much longer for them than it does for me. So it's like, I always feel bad when the kids come up to me and say, hey, do you remember me? I took a picture with you at this game. And I say, yes. And they can tell that I'm lying. Because kids know right
That's where
away.
those acting chops come into play.
Yeah, like even I can act as well as I could.
Right.
That's going to be like, then they'll say something else. Like, I remember that. And I'll say something that happened during that game.
Right.
Which then makes it okay. Because everybody wants to be remembered. But
right, for sure.
It's hard. But if I go to a game unpainted and the kid notices me, why aren't you painted up? You're here at the game. It's like the disappointment that comes with that.
Yeah.
And
you've sort of gained the responsibility in a weird way, you know, because kids look up to you and fans look up to you. Do you think that your purpose or your why has changed over your career? Because you've been in it for a long time and you've seen a lot of things, like, because everyone starts off with one thing and starts, having a goal, and then obviously things change over the years. Have you seen any of that change?
Yes, I would say that the hardest part about this is the fact that I feel like a starving artist, because there isn't the money that's attached to this that what could possibly be. You know what I mean? That being said, for a while the money was going to be like, hey, there's going to be money at the end of this rainbow. Now it's just the positivity. There's so much negativity out there for so many different reasons. Everybody has got something that's very miserable in their lives. And if you are able to bring positivity and to smile to somebody for even that short amount of time, they remember that much more than they always have time to dwell on the bad. It's that good that they remember. And if I get to be the face of that for them, that's what makes it all worth it. And the money may not come. You know, it may not be anything like that. I'm able to do that, but I can't worry about that.
Right.
You know,
And I think as long as you love it, that figures itself out. You mentioned that, you know, you want to put a smile on kids' faces and create in those moments, and you seem like a very like authentic and positive guy, which we need more of in this world. Do you think that that comes from something? Is there like a role model you had growing up, or someone you really looked up to that like instilled that in you?
you know, as contentious as the relationship was, it was my mom. You know, my mother, and a friend of mine who was always saying to keep it positive, you know, and just so between the two of them, because my mother was just gave me like the work ethic and like, this is what you got to do, and you're always in customer service, and you gotta it's always about them, it's never about you. So you could have the worst day in the world, and then you screw on your smile and you're a completely different person. That is what my drive comes from, you know, all of that and my work ethic. The person who actually kind of gets credit for the don't curse, you know, that should be your first rule. You know, I don't curse, I don't sit down, I don't shut up. Comes from a buddy of mine, Chris, you know, and he was, you know, I end every email with "stay awesome." That's deliberately stolen from him. You know what I mean? Because he would end his, you know, if you had to leave him a message, and stay awesome. So it's like, and I'm always telling people to stay awesome. So that, keeping that positive, and then I think about other people, like the high road is less traveled because nobody wants to walk it. So if you stay up there, you're going to get recognized for doing so. So that's, and that's when people start to, like I said, I have such a young, strong base. As you get older, they're starting to realize that. But the parents have a hard time connecting with their kids nowadays. And if they can use the Philly sports guy as a connection, I mean, I've heard so many times now that the parents get a whole bunch of street cred because they know who I am. You know what I mean? You mean Jamie? You know, I don't know him as the Philly sport. That's Jamie, you know? But the kids are like, you know him? It's such a big deal for them. And it's, you know, again, I don't let it go to my head because, you know, really all it is that, again, I'm yelling at the phone because somebody else is playing sports. Right. You know, if Philadelphia was not as good right now, if the Eagles stunk, if the Phillies didn't make it, you know, the fact that we had 3 championships last year.
We were spoiled last year. We lost all 3, but we were spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's like, oh, well, you lost 2 in the same day. Yeah, but I was at 2 in the same day, you know?
So my grandma told me this quote, and it goes exactly into what you just said. I say it every episode when I can. And it's when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's all about like your perspective and how you see the world. And that's ultimately what can create the positive atmosphere and positive vibe, and also turning a negative into a positive, which you have done, you know, it seems like seemingly your whole life. And, you know, I hope that people can watch this and really see that like we need more people like you, and like being positive does pay off. You know, a lot of people like the drama and the negativity, but when it comes down to it, just being a good person, being genuine is, you know, ideal, and that's exactly what you are. And I seriously want to thank you for coming on this podcast and giving me your time. And you know, it was great talking to you. Seriously, it was awesome to connect with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at sports events, you know, all painted up. So do you have anything coming up, any new projects you're working on, or anything big you're working on?
You know, right now it's like I'm obviously going to a lot of Phillies games, and Eagles season is about to begin, and you know, the Flyers are on the horizon, even though we have no idea what they're going to look like here in a minute. Right. And then on top of that, the Union are about to win their first cup. I think they wind up winning, you know, their first actual cup. So I don't really have anything in the works right now, but things happen very quickly for me. It's a very big hurry up and wait situation. But with the Eagles season, I do a lot for the Eagles autism, and you know, I try to do stuff for different charities along the way. Again, like I said, if you're going to have this type of microphone that I've given myself by painting my face, you have to use it for good.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's really more of where I'm putting my focus at during the dog days of summer, as they are.
Right. And I have to ask too, is there Is there an end goal? Do you have a plan, or you just want to provide as much happiness, positivity as you can?
So I mean, when I start to look at this and how does this evolve beyond, I've been doing a lot more public speaking and like trying to talk about. I've aligned with the Elite Superfans, which is a charity that deals with bullying in schools, and I've been putting together different, programs for anything from kindergarten to 6th grade up to high school, and then even on the college level.
That's amazing.
So, and that takes time.
Right.
You have to formulate the stories, and it's telling a story, but it's telling it in 3 different or 4 different ways,
Right.
so that it can relate to the age group that you're dealing with.
That's great. I mean, you've created so much positivity over the years. I mean, that's something that anyone could look at and only respect. So I respect it, and I think that's amazing. Where can they find you on social media?
Just look under the Philly Sports Guy. You Google the Philly. I just say Google me now, the Philly Sports Guy.
That's a flex. That's a flex.
And you find me pretty quickly. It's if you look up Philadelphia sports fan, in most cases, there's usually 3 people that show up: Sean, Dumphy, or myself.
Yeah, I just had Dunphy on yesterday, so he's a good guy.
Yeah, Dumphy is a great dude.
So I want to thank you. Like I said, thank you for coming on, and like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the games. And hopefully I have some tailgates coming up for the Eagle season, so hopefully you can come out and hang out and meet everybody and get some pictures taken. But this has been the Loft. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm Kevin Nichols. That's the Philly Sports Guy. Stay awesome.